What happens when you put Dan Levy and Rachel Sennot in a room and let them create a comedic thriller? Well, you get big mistakes on Netflix. Season 1 is 8 episodes of ever-increasing trouble. But is it going to be a mistake to watch? Two deeply incapable siblings get in over their heads when a misguided theft for their dying grandmother accidentally pulls them into the world of organized crime. Blackmailed into increasingly dangerous assignments, they clumsily fall upwards, sinking deeper into chaos they're ill-equipped to handle. So this stars Dan Levy, Taylor Ortega, Laurie Metcalf, Abby Quinn, Boran Kusum, Jack Innanen, and Elizabeth Perkins. Now, if you're a fan of Levy in Schitt's Creek, then you're going to love him here. He plays a pastor in his town and gets to use his expertly honed sarcastic yet whiny line delivery to be a self-effacing and timid guy who all of a sudden finds his life spiraling into madness thanks to a mix-up created by his sister. The episodes are about 30-ish minutes, so the whole binge, it's not going to take too long. But I wouldn't have minded if it did take a little while longer. There were multiple times that I was just laughing out loud thanks to the responses and the expressions that Levy would deliver. So many of the scenes just had him expressing these small, almost innocuous lines, but the way they came out made them riotous. But not to be outdone, the show uses Taylor Ortega and Laurie Metcalf to accentuate the strain and then the comedy. Ortega is Levy's sister who takes a necklace for their dying grandma, only finding out that it was an overly expensive piece of jewelry that was owned by the mob. This then leads to a sort of week for the brother-sister duo that's a mix of Alexander and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, and If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, where one thing leads to another, usually progressively much worse than what came before. I think what makes this work is that the pair just get out of their own way. One or both of them contribute to the trouble, and then we get to watch it all play out in hilarious disharmony. Now, the humor is quick and witty, and while a lot of it is angry yelling, there's a certain level of camaraderie that Levy and Ortega share that surpasses any dysfunction, allowing us to continue to root for them despite any awful decision or situation. And this also isn't strictly a comedic show. It's a crime thriller that's then enhanced with snark. And while the crime aspect, it isn't as detailed or complex as a Michael Mann or David Fincher story, but it is intriguing and shrouded enough to keep us on our toes. Now, going back to the cast for a minute, an absolute standout in this is Laurie Metcalf. She plays the mother of Ortega and Levy and their other sister who's played by Abby Quinn. Now, Metcalf is neurotic, jumpy, highly opinionated and pushy, and then every grown adult's nightmare when it comes to nosy and overbearing parents. While she gets close to being too over the top, Metcalf knows exactly when to rein herself back in to keep the character ridiculous but not unlikable. She's also got decades of experience focusing her timing to flow seamlessly through the scenes, giving the needed punch of dialogue before exiting and leaving everyone in tears of laughter. Now, because the plot wants to have some longevity to it and not be solely focused on the unfortunate voluntoldism that Levy and Ortega find themselves in, we get offshoot storylines that help to create more depth and conflict for our characters. Now, Ortega is dealing with uncertain feelings about her longtime boyfriend. Levy is trying to balance a relationship without his congregation finding out that he's not a celibate gay pastor. And Metcalf, she's running for mayor, bringing about its own load of drama. And these storylines, they do create more levity, even heart, but they also run the risk of killing momentum when not inserted in the correct order. We can go from a high-stakes, tense exchange to then a low-key, calm discussion, and it can feel like whiplash in those instances, breaking the pace in order to include relational drama. Now, these didn't happen all the time, but there were moments, especially in the later episodes, that they became noticeable, especially in how they made the runtime come across. Now, there's also a choppiness to the presentation. Some of that is just to maintain a quick pace so that the majority of the situations feel intense and just full of excitement. But this also then leads to not really knowing how much time is passing. We'll jump from a scene to later. What's later? It could be the next day, 3 days, I don't know, maybe just a few hours. It's ill-determined, creating the appearance that the plot is unfocused, even though everything does tie together. Despite how hilarious the series is, I can see how this could get grating, just thanks to the near constant bickering that takes place between Ortega and Levy. Now, I suggest that if you are watching it and it gets to be too much, just take a break and then come back to it. The story is worth the binge, and ultimately, no matter how massively flawed the family is, they do stick together and they have each other's backs. Dan Levy is superb, mixing fear, uncertainty, compassion, aggravation, despair, even hope into a character that is overtly sympathetic despite some glaring imperfections. Taylor Ortega holds her own against Levy, bringing to life a character who should be dislikable and grating, but turns out to be vulnerable, overshadowed, lonely, while trying to prove her worth to astronomical familial expectations. With Laurie Metcalf and the rest of the cast creating a beautiful ensemble of dysfunction and stress, Big Mistakes turns out not to be a mistake at all, but a hilarious thriller with heart and the mob. There's no sex, some nudity, almost non-stop profanity, and then some violence. I give season 1 of Big Mistakes 3.5 out of 5 couches. If you're in need of a laugh and then you enjoy Dan Levy's style of comedy, definitely give this one a go. Okay, what are you binging right now? Anything good that you can recommend? I would love to hear about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.